Hey everybody, I'm Andy.
And I'm Sean.
And this is the Commander's Brew.
This week, an epic experiment.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 99 of the Commander's Brew, the great one.
Yes, I think we can say before recording it, this will be a great one.
This is the great one because this is episode 99, and if you know anything about anything, then you know that this is the Wayne Gretzky episode of Commander's Brew.
Wayne Gretzky episode.
It can't be a Canadian podcast without a huge to-do about episode 99.
Right. Arguably, should we have made this a bigger deal than our 100th episode, which is next?
Next week, yeah. Yes, we should have, I think. That would have been a good joke that we make 99 bigger than 100 because it's the Gretzky episode.
Yep.
By the way, do you know what a Gretzky is when you go to Tim Hortons, which is another huge Canadian reference?
No, I've never had a Gretzky at Tim Hortons.
So here's the thing. I'll fill in our American viewers. It's like our Dunkin' Donuts, basically, Tim Hortons, if you didn't know that. But you go in and you order either like a regular coffee, or you can get a double, which is 2 milk or cream or whatever, and then 2 sugar. So 2 and 2, right? Some people have been known to order the triple, which is like insane, right?
3 creams, 3 sugars.
3 sugars. Please, that's too much. But I do have a friend who has ordered the Gretzky. 9 cream,
9 milks, 9 sugars?
Yes.
Oh, wow. We can do this for everything then.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like you can order like if you want 2 milks, 3 sugars, that's the Michael Jordan right there.
That's true.
Or does it always have to be Canadian hockey players?
I mean, I like it being double, like it can be double letters, but it could be anything. You're right. The 8 and 8 would be the Lindros.
Yeah. Oh, can I have the Maurice Richard? It's like, what is that?
What's that?
Just 5 of something.
Isn't it? No, it'd be 9.
Is it not? Yeah, either 9 milk or 9 sugar.
It's just 9 milks. So by that logic, also, if you just ever drank 9 milks, like 9 those little cartons of milk, just did a huge Richard.
And then later on. No, I'm not going to go there.
I also did a huge Richard.
Oh,
man.
Oh, boy. This is the Commander's Brew.
It sure is.
A Canadian MTG podcast. We're going to do a Commander deck every episode. We're going to make sure the whole thing's under $50. And we're going to make sure no cards over $5 unless it's like essential to the deck.
That's right. We keep it under 50, like Sean was saying, and this week we got a pretty neat deck. But before we get into the actual meat and potatoes, 2 things. Wanted to mention our Patreon, which is at patreon.com/commandersbrew. For people who want to support the show directly, you can give as little or as much as you want per episode. It's great, and we have all kinds of cool perks, T-shirts, coasters, things like that.
We're gonna do a really big giveaway soon because we just cracked a milestone.
That's right.
We're delayed on it because GP Vegas we're flying out in 2 days from now.
Yep.
So if you want in on that, now's the time to join.
That's right. We also have Brew and Brawls at the end of every month on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/commandersbrew. And if you follow us on Twitch, you can get access to giveaways we do over there as well. So that's pretty cool. And of course, we would be remiss if we did not mention our sponsor, the Wizard's Tower. And we do have an ad from them, and here it is.
Hi, thank you for tuning in to the Amonkhet Community Spotlight. If you have any issues you would like promoted on the Amonkhet Community Spotlight, please mail them, including a self-addressed stamped envelope, to the Little Pyramid, Oketra Street, in Ta on Amonkhet. Please address them care of James. That's me, James. Anyway, community update on Amonkhet. Lots of new warriors showed up. They keep showing up. And they've decided to make a choir. Listen for them at the Luxa Riverbank on Thursday. Also in the news, trials are coming up, as always. Rumors that the God Pharaoh's gonna come back soon, so get on that training if you haven't already. And birthdays. Lots of birthdays today. Too many to go through specifically. Now that I'm supposed to give birthdays to mummies, because everybody counts, which is great. Hopefully the God Pharaoh will remember that. Seems like a good guy. Also in community events, the Wizards Tower, wizardtower.com, free shipping on singles to Canada if you spend $15 on singles or more. Free shipping to the US on singles if you spend $10 on singles or more. On singles. And if you use coupon code Tower of Brews, get an extra 5% off. And you'll get 3% kickback for your next order on singles. Or whatever. Singles. You ever had those pieces of cheese? Kraft singles? I heard of them from another plane. I can't remember which one. Was it Theros? I don't know. Anyway, that's the community update from Amon Ket. Big news a-coming.
So there's a fair amount of things happening in Amon Cat, it seems.
Yeah, I guess no matter how crazy things get, there's always time for some community news.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to keep up to date on what's happening in your own community. It's important.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Let's get to the next segment here.
Oh yeah, segment 1, the Commander's Burn, where we take a card and we just roast it. A card this maybe should have been better than it advertised, or something like that. Or a card that often these cards are the cards that we were so excited about, but then we're like, oh, this card is not nearly as cool as I thought it was.
Yeah, a lot of times at first glance you'll be like, oh, this looks really awesome, and then in practice it just does not deliver.
Yeah.
And today's card that we'll be roasting is Epic Experiment.
Mm-hmm.
X blue red for a sorcery that says exile the top X cards of your library. For each instant and sorcery card with converted mana cost X or less among them, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost, then put all cards exiled this way that weren't cast into the graveyard. So it's a Genesis wave for instants and sorceries. And if you know anything about Genesis wave, you know it's great in big mana green decks. So Epic Experiment must be as good in big mana X decks. But here's the thing. It hits less cards. It only hits instants and sorceries. So whereas Genesis wave will hit creatures, it hits lands too, right?
Yeah, it hits permanents. Like
artifacts, enchantments. So that's like way more things. Epic Experiment doesn't do that. And of course, you got an X spell here. So you want to have as much mana as possible, which makes you want to have other X spells, but then those X spells are nothing.
All right.
So let's go.
Roasts. Okay, so first we're going to bring you some roasts from our listeners. As always, if you want to participate, just use the hashtag Commander's Burn. And yeah, we'll make sure to include some of our faves. First up, from a friend of the show, former guest, Mr. Plorg at Mr. Plorg. You might be more familiar with him as Nate, one of the former co-hosts of Commanderin.
Oh, who we should mention, Nate Burgess is now on a new podcast.
Is he?
He is.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so excited! I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called Commander Time, and it's Nate and a couple of other writers from EDH Rec, which I also happen to write for. Yeah, so check them out. Commander Time. They go every Friday.
I will give that a listen as soon as we're done here today.
Yep, there you go.
Nonetheless, here's your first taste of a burn from Nate. Epic Experiment. When you want all of the rest of your X spells to have an X of 0.
Yes. He nailed it.
Yeah.
He really nailed it. We also have one from our boy Cal Morgan here. That's at CallumMorgan11 on Twitter. He says, "Hey, Epic Experiment, you're more disappointing than the last U.S. election."
Ooh, burn.
That is a political burn.
Political burn. P-burn.
Ooh, that sounds even worse than a political burn.
Yeah, it really does. Stephen St. Clair at Saint-like games, hey, epic experiment. Your ceiling is finding you on the ground and not knowing what magic is.
Ooh, epic experiment. He flipped it on you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Taking a explanation that is near and dear to my heart and making a burn out of it.
We also have Aurelia War Leader at Boros Aurelia. I think this is actually Aurelia, her Twitter account. Hey, epic experiment. Animist Awakening called. They want advice on how to exile more lands from your library.
Yeah, right.
That's a massive burn.
If that's the real Aurelia, A, an honor that she would participate in our Commander's Burn.
Thanks.
B, surprised she knows so much about blue and green spells.
That's true. Yep. She's it's not so often she's probably paired up with those, but
Not too often.
she's a worldly person. She knows what's going on.
Okay, so now we'll do some of our own burns.
Yeah.
Andy, let's start with you. What do you got?
All right. Okay. So yeah. All right. Epic experiment. Hey, epic experiment. What do I want to do? Cast all my instants and sorceries from my library all at one time?
Okay, and the burn.
Burn. That's it. That's a burn.
Okay. That's the burn?
Yeah.
That sounds kind of positive.
Well, whatever. It is what it does, right?
I know. I mean, are you too stuck on the good side of this card?
No. I
Are you
got
unable
other
to burn
burns.
it?
Let's go. No. Just go. What's your next burn? Let's go.
Okay. Hey, epic experiment. They should have banned you when they banned those other experiments back in the 50s they were doing on people.
It's not the same kind of experiment, though.
Right.
Hey. Okay. Here we go. Hey, epic experiment. Do you and Talran want to make 1,000 2/2 drakes? What are you doing?
Oh, and then like the birds like poop on everything or something? Is that
No, they're drakes. They're wicked. 2/2 flyers.
okay? Andy, what's up, man? These burns are not burns. These are praises.
No,
These are ups. Are we doing Commander's ups?
Commander's ups.
Are you? Maybe we should.
Let's
get
keep
all
her
this
rolling.
energy
I got
out.
one more. I got a good one here. This one's gonna sting. I think this one's
Okay,
gonna be
let's
good.
hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay. Hey, epic experiment. Way to be a 2-card combo with Sphinx Bone Wand to win the game and kill everyone.
Okay, these are very good things. Should we just?
I was
deck
having.
on this?
I'm sorry. I did. I got to admit, I had a hard time writing burns for this card.
Because you secretly love this card.
I grew to love it.
You know what? As an Is It player at heart, I do too. I really love this card. Let's brew a deck around it.
Okay, let's do that. Let's
Okay.
do our first ever Commander's Burn into a full deck. Which
It's true.
is exactly what happened with this week's episode.
Writing burns and thinking about it, and we kept saying, man, I wish this card should be really good. Let's do a deck on it. And the more we thought about it, we're like, I guess you'd have to do this, and after this is like, yeah, this sounds like it's got legs. So like, here we go. This is it.
Yeah, and it's like it does have like, now listen, it's not it's the like crazy fun deck. I'm not gonna say you're gonna win every game with this deck or anything, but it's super fun, and so much so that I've already made this deck in paper.
Yeah.
This is the first time, I think, for our show, 99 episodes in, where one of us has made the deck before the show. Is that right? Have you ever done that before?
Yes, I have.
Oh, you did it before too?
Well, no. I've never done it like this. I've had a deck, and I've like sort of like pushed an episode to like help one of my decks a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And then I made some adjustments on the fly, right? So like
okay.
that's kind of a borderline case. But this is the first time one of us has put a deck together in between brewing it and recording the episode.
yeah. Now, part of that, of course, is because I wanted to have it for Vegas. So and like yesterday was the only day I could go and like go to the store and get the cards and stuff. So
yeah.
But it happened, and I'm excited about it. Yeah, it's real.
Okay, so let's take a second and talk about what our initial game plan is, right?
Yes.
Obviously, one of the flaws of Epic Experiment is, like, everyone compares, rightly so, but you can brew a deck that is only permanents, but you cannot brew a deck that is only instants and sorceries, because lands are not instants and sorceries.
That is correct.
And if you want a huge X spell, you got a ramp, but if you're using mana rocks, again, not instants and sorceries. So how do we get around this problem? We include green.
Yes, of course. We have to, right?
Yeah.
You just have to include
Right?
green for this deck. It's just the simplest solution. And,
Right.
And what does
Then
green?
we get
Go ahead. Yeah.
right, yeah, because then we get access to green ramp spells that also pull land out of our deck, which make the odds of hitting more things with Epic Experiment even greater. That's the way to go with this. And then this is where we got to our first discussion, our first little debate. Because if you're gonna run tons of green rampy search up land spells, you don't need to run 40 lands. Even though we're running zero mana rocks. Zero.
Yeah.
Do we need, how many lands do we need? So we both have slightly different opinions on this. You built the deck proper. How many lands did you go with?
I went with 35.
35 lands, no rocks.
I in the Forge version I had 36, but I think you might be able to pull it off with 35.
Yeah.
What about you? What
Wicked.
were you saying?
I was
At first you wanted
experiment.
Yeah.
I wanted 30. I wanted 30 lands, no mana rocks. And I wanted to weigh it 80% of the lands green and just 10% red lands, 10% blue lands, almost no. And then any multicolor lands always have green in them, right? Because I just got to get green so I can hit all my early tutor for land spells, and then that just keeps me in the land game. That gets me up there.
Yeah, and we should, I guess at this point, do you want to mention the type? I know we actually don't have this in the notes, but I can pull them up. So there's a specific type of card that we were thinking about when we're thinking of replacing them with lands, right? So, or replacing lands with them, rather. The card that we kind of built this idea around is a card like Lay of the Land, for example. So Lay of the Land is 1 green. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. So the reason for this is deck thinning, right? And it's of course it's a very minimal effect when you're only pulling 1 card out. But there are some more examples of this where we can pull multiple cards out, multiple lands out. But this is the baseline. So you get 1 green land in your opening hand and a Lay of the Land. That's 2 lands you have, right? And obviously we're not an aggressively attacking deck or anything. So we're not trying to lay things down super early and, do that sort of thing. So we want to spend those first probably 4 turns at least casting spells that get us our lands. So we're pulling lands out of the deck so that when we do go with Epic Experiment, obviously there's just less lands to hit.
Yeah, and so a lot of the 1 mana green look for a land cards, you can count those as lands effectively, right?
Well,
it is possible if your opening hand only has those and no actual forests, then you're screwed.
Of course.
But for simplicity's sake, you can sort of count them as lands, and then those get you to 2 mana, right? So you can keep opening hands with less lands in them, hence why we can run less lands total.
Yeah.
Because we expect to play 1 every turn and get to our bigger spells that cost 3 that help us actually ramp, right? Searching for a card and putting in your hand is not actual ramp, but we do have plenty that do actually ramp.
Yeah. This is a dangerous game, right? This is the hardest. This is the hardest part of this deck, is getting that balance right. So I wouldn't fault anyone for saying that, hey, you guys, 35 lands is too low. You need 36 or 37 or whatever. I think 35 is I think 35 or 36 is where you want to be, which is, for me, is only cutting 2 or 3 lands depending on the normal kind of deck. I usually like to run 38 or 37 lands
Yeah.
Not obviously there's exceptions, but I think for the most part that's with enough ramp, I think that's a fine. But this is the thing, like anyways, it's so difficult because if you, the main reason is because mulligans get way harder, right? So if you draw 7 and you don't have a land, or you don't have one of these spells and you just got like an island and a mountain, that's questionable. That's a tricky keep. Like I think you still have to keep that just because of the way this deck works, but man, that's tough. So if you mulligan again and if you start getting down where you're getting down to 6 and 5 cards, it's like, well, now your odds of drawing a land are just so low that you got to keep those. You kind of have to keep some rough hands at 6 and 7 sometimes.
I think it comes down to preference, right? If you keep it super lean and run like 32 lands, then you're gonna spend more than average games not playing Magic, where you just don't do anything and your deck fizzles. But those games where it works, it's gonna be fireworks. So I think that's like, what is your risk aversion level, right? Like if you're willing to put up with a few don't play games to get to like crazy epic experiments, there you go, use less. But if you'd rather a little bit more consistent by sacrificing some of the crazier experiments, sure, they're still going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But that's up to you.
Yeah. This is the hardest part of the deck building is about making sacrifices. It seems.
Yeah.
And it's
hardest part of life.
It's tough, and I get that. That's why people might shy away from a deck like this. You just want to play. So if you build a deck with 32 lands, there's a good chance you're just not going to be able to play sometimes. Like,
oh man,
it might stink. Like, but if that's what I'm saying. Like, you're not always going to win, but like, if you get to survive, you'll get those lands and you'll get those cards, and it goes off pretty good once that starts happening.
And you only need a little bit of traction. Once you get a little bit going, you're pulling more lands out of your deck. Once you get that chain going, you're playing more of those ramp spells. You're searching up more lands. You're always hitting your land drops. It actually becomes fairly consistent, and the thinning of the deck does become noticeable. Like you start to draw more action cards, which keep you in business, which make you keep moving forward. So it doesn't take a lot of traction. It's just that initial moment, that initial opening 7. It's so key.
Yeah. My camera keeps cutting out. It's so weird.
I hear that.
Yeah. I don't know why it does it. Anyways,
are we okay to use this footage?
Yeah. We're still good. We'll keep rolling here. I'll fix it on the fly.
Cool.
Let's keep going.
All right. So we've discussed kind of the flaws and how we're getting around these flaws of Epic Experiment and like what kinds of things are in there. So let's go into some of those first cards. What are some of the cards we're using to actually get lands? Right?
Right.
So that we can use less lands and more land search ups.
So you're gonna have to take this while I figure this out, but
sure.
But keep going.
Okay, great. So some of these, let me talk about Harrow. Harrow is an excellent card in this deck. 2 and a green, instant. As an additional cost to cast Harrow, sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Put this in your back pocket, because the key thing about this, we love it because it takes 2 lands out of the deck. Right? That's 2 less lands to get in the way of Epic Experiment later, and they go right into play. But since we sacrificed 1, we actually only go up by 1, but those 2 lands come into play untapped. This is key because as we move forward, you'll find out, we'll cover why having some untapped lands, why you may not want to tap out entirely for Epic Experiment. And if you do, and you hit a Harrow, you can get 2 new lands untapped for the resolution of all your spells.
Yeah, it's a great
Cool.
one. Great one to have.
Yeah. And just another example of one of the early ones, right? One of those single greens. We need to use single green ones because we can't assume we're going to get 3 lands. Mm-hmm. But Attune with Ether, classic from Kaladesh. It's going gangbusters in standard right now for any energy deck. We don't care about the energy, but for 1 green, we're going to search our library for a basic, put it in our hand, shuffle your library. and we get 2 energy that we won't use in any way.
That's right. Keep that energy counter at 2 all game long.
Yeah.
Okay, after this is a classic. Rampant Growth. 1 and a green. Search your library for basic land. Put it in battlefield tapped. Shuffle your library. I don't know if we haven't mentioned it yet, but we do run Brainstorm in this deck. This is another huge effect of these ramp spells, especially the cheap ones, the 1 green or the 1 and a green ones. You can Brainstorm, you can find something better off the top, or even put something back on for your epic experiment, but also we'll be able to shuffle any cards we don't want away from the top of our deck with Rampant Growth or Lay of the Land or Attune with Ether, whatever.
Great.
Cool news.
So that's kind of some of the experimental odds, right? That's how we get better at running our experiments, right? Now, with every good experiment, we need to collect some data, right?
Okay.
And in the name of collecting data, that means collecting the epic experiment itself. So, Andy, why don't you take these 2 and So this is how we're going to find epic experiment.
This is a big one. This is one I don't believe we've ever featured on the show before. But for the purposes of this deck, it is an absolute must-have, and that's Mystical Tutor. And luckily, it's come down in price quite a bit since it's Eternal Masters printing, but it is crawling back up. So, you probably know this already, but if you haven't picked up your Mystical Tutors, do so. It's a 1 blue instant for a card that says search your library for an instant or sorcery card and reveal that card, shuffle your library, and put that card on top of it.
Yeah.
So this is a quick end of turn thing to make sure you draw your epic experiment. Obviously, we need to get that card, and it is 100% the card you get with this, right? However, I will say
100%.
100%. You have to get epic experiment. If you're holding epic experiment in your hand and you draw Mystical Tutor, that's great. You just get to now make sure that you cast whatever spell you want before you do epic experiment. It's awesome, right? So if you want to go off that turn and you can do an epic experiment for 13, well, do it for 12 instead, but guarantee that you hit your best sorcery or whatever.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. That's great.
That's what I do. And it is worth it to go down just 1 like that. I wouldn't go down from like 8 to 7 or 7 to 6. I wouldn't do that. There's a minimum.
Yes.
There's a minimum number you want to hit with epic experiment for sure.
Right. And that minimum number is, we can tell you what that minimum number is. That's the highest CMC of any instant or sorcery you have, right? More cards is always better, but the key, there's not a huge difference between 15 and 16 cards.
Right.
Right. But if you have 8 mana spells, you never want to cast it for less than 8 because it would be the worst to hit that 8, but not be allowed to cast it because it was too small.
Exactly.
Right?
You don't want to whiff.
Yeah, so find that minimum ceiling and go over it. But like Andy says, if 13 to 14 is no big difference, it's better to use your Mystical Tutor and save that 1 card by putting something awesome on top.
Definitely. Same thing with if you have a counter spell, if you have a Swan Song in your hand and you think there's a chance something might get countered, hold that 1. It'll be worth it. You don't want your epic experiment countered.
Oh my
all.
God, that's the worst.
Same thing with keep 2. It's well worth it. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. Another one that will get us our epic experiment is Muddle the Mixture. It's a 2 blue instant counter spell that counters target instant or sorcery spell. But also has Transmute for 1 and 2 blue, and Transmute is will sorcery speed tutor for a card with the same CMC as this one, so it's 2. So epic experiment, of course, is an X spell with blue and red, so we can get that with 2. So Muddle the Mixture is great because counter spells are good, just in general, of course.
Yep.
The tutor's great. Also, we will talk about Storm later, and even this card can help you out with Storm. It's great.
It certainly can. And it's a great transmute card because the front half is what we need to do, right? We want our counter spells to specifically protect Epic Experiment. And the only way, well, not the only way, but the most likely way our opponents will try to counter them is with an instant spell. So Muddle the Mixture deals with that directly.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So any good experiment, if you're doing a good experiment, any scientist will tell you, you need to do the experiment more than once. It is no good to do an experiment once and then assume you know everything you need to know.
No.
So that means getting back Epic Experiment.
Yes, of course.
Right? Let me talk about Recollect. 2 and a green for a sorcery. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. How about Epic Experiment? This regrowth is a bit over budget for this deck, but obviously we would want that effect as well. Just being able to return any card, including instants and sorceries, love it.
It is like there's obviously a lot of blue and red spells that do it, like Mystic Retrieval, which is 3 and a blue to return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and it has flashback for 2 and a red. But I will say that Recollect is, well, maybe not Mystic Retrieval because it has flashback, but Recollect is better than a one-time blue spell that does this, because this can also get one of your creatures or an artifact or something if that makes a lot of sense. And there will be times where that is something you actually want. Because
absolutely,
as you'll see, some of our win conditions are permanents as opposed to instants or sorceries.
Right.
But Mystic Retrieval is great because it has flashback, obviously.
Okay, so Andy, I'm putting you a bit on the spot here. I've added a category here that are not in our pre-show tabs before. But I'll cover the first one while you look it up maybe and then get you up to speed here.
Okay.
I think it's important to give some credit to our faithful lab assistants, right? These are the people who are helping us out in the lab, who are helping us get our stuff done. And I cannot think of a better lab assistant than the Charmbreaker Devils. 5 and a red, Devil, 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard to your hand. So it's probably at this, by the time you cast Charmbreaker Devils, we're going to assume you haven't hit your Epic Experiment yet. We're probably going to get another green ramp spell back with these guys. That's awesome. We're happy to cast another one, ramp even further, get more lands out of our deck. We love that. And if we do get something very useful, like if we've already done our Epic Experiment and these guys give it back to us, even better. Not only that, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, they get +4/+0 until end of turn.
Yeah.
So if there's an opponent who has no defense on the ground or the air, after you resolve an Epic Experiment, you're probably going to cast 8 spells.
Yeah,
this guy gets enormous.
Yeah, that's real big. Real big.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of support to get creatures unblockable because, again, we got to keep those non-instants and sorceries to a minimum. And an unblockable instant does us no good without these guys, so we're not really running those.
And we're not really running even stuff like Rogue's Passage, which we maybe could in this case if we're going to have this guy. Maybe. I don't know.
It might be worth it, but then you'd have to save 4 mana in addition to the Rogue's Passage underneath your Epic Experiment. So now we're making a smaller Epic Experiment.
But if you knew that you had Charmbreaker Devils out, that's a kill, right? So maybe it's worth it at that point, depending on what your number was. Anyways, there's a lot of variables in this experiment. That's why you have to do multiple experiments, right?
Multiple experiments.
We want to pin down those variables and know which ones that we can account for and which ones we should include and which ones we should exclude.
Who's another lab assistant?
Another great lab assistant is Trench Gorger. Trench Gorger is 6 and 2 blue for a Leviathan, a 6/6 trampler. And he says, when Trench Gorger enters the battlefield, you may search your library for any number of land cards, exile them, then shuffle your library. If you do, Trench Gorger's power and toughness each become equal to the number of cards exiled this way. So just being what he is, he's a pretty big win condition. He is oftentimes like a 15/15 or 20/20 massive trampling monster, which is difficult to deal with, of course, and basically not able to be blocked with his trample. But, of course, more importantly, what he does is he sucks the lands out of our deck so that the Epic Experiment after him is just gas and will probably make you win the game. Epic Experiment sometimes can just win you the game, period, if you have something else out that can support it. But Trench Gorger basically is your enemy should be very afraid of the Trench Gorger you cast. Basically.
I think so.
Yeah.
And from our initial testing, it seems correct to maybe not take all the lands out of your deck, because they might deal with your Trench Gorger. 1 Swords to Plowshares, you'll gain a bunch of life, but that ends that story pretty quick.
Yeah.
But at least then you have a few lands left, so if you do cast a Harrow or a Rampant Growth, they have something to do.
Well, that's the thing. So it depends, right? Like,
Yeah. It depends what your game plan is and at what stage of the experiment you're on.
exactly. If you're right at 8 mana, don't take all the lands out, obviously.
Right. Right.
We want more than 8 mana. If you're up in the, like, if you've got 16, if you're tapping for 16, 17 mana, I think it's fair to suck them all out. Because even those spells that Sean mentioned, those can still be cast. They just won't find anything. They'll shuffle your library, basically. Harrow specifically will sack you a land, which kind of sucks, but whatever. It's one spell.
Yeah. I am kind of the opinion you should leave in 2 basics for Harrow.
Harrow would be the only... Yeah, Harrow would be the one.
Because if I Epic Experiment into Harrow, I want to get those 2 mana untapped.
You can also just choose not to cast Harrow with your Epic Experiment, though.
That's also true.
There's also that, which is like... Whatever. I think so like early you would never do that, but at this point in the game, you've got 17 lands. Why would you it doesn't really one spell cast that would get you lands. You don't need to cast it. It's fine.
Right.
I think it's worth it to get all the lands out. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all pretty negligible at that point, so like whatever you want to do is fine.
Great. One last lab assistant we want to give an honorable mention to, and that's the Gutter Snipe. Gutter Snipe is a goblin shaman for 2 and a red, and you get a 2/2. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. Well, he's good early. While you're ramping out, you're just pinging everybody for 2 over and over. And then when you do get that Epic Experiment, if Gutter Snipe is on the table, or maybe he's copied somehow, if you've made a copy of him in any way, like the next Epic Experiment is going to be crazy.
Yeah,
you're gonna like I said, we hit about an average of 8 to 10 spells, it seems, from our initial testing. 8 times 2, that's what is it, 16 damage to everybody. Pretty good.
The thing with I think the thing with playing Epic Experiment and multiplayer, I think people are for the most part going to leave you alone for the beginning of the game. They're going to see what you're doing and they're going to go, "Oh, you're getting lots of lands. Okay. You got maybe you cast a commander, but in this, we didn't even really talk about our commander, did we?
We didn't even mention them because we had to use green. We didn't talk about our team or commander.
So at first we wanted to use Riku, but then we switched it to partners. And what partners did we use again?
We used Kaidel,
right,
and we used Crown. No, we used Ludovic.
Ludovic, right. So we got there's some card draw going on, and there's a little bit of ramp, but neither of those two are like super threatening, is what I'm saying, right? So in the early game, you'll probably be able to ramp out. You'll get a lot of stuff going, but when you cast that first Epic Experiment, once people see what you're doing, they're going to go like, okay, all right, we can't just let you live and cast Epic Experiment 3 times. Same thing goes for if you have Gutter Snipe out and you do it. Like if they see Gutter Snipe after you've Epic Experimented, like forget it. Like they're going to know exactly what's going on. But the good thing, what Gutter Snipe does to that game is that not only, so they're going to look at you already with Epic Experiment and go, oh, we got to kill him or her. But if you have Gutter Snipe out, it like really puts the pressure on them. If they can't kill you, Gutter Snipe's going to hit them for like 10 every turn. If you're recurring your Epic Experiment, or even if you're just, I don't know, if you're just going nuts with spells, right? Gutter Snipe's going to put a lot of pressure on. So depending on which way you look at it, it's either really good or like kind of bad. It's either going to really force your opponents to hit you when they may not have, or they were going to anyways, and now you're just closer to killing them. I think getting closer to killing them is better. You want to kind of explode in like 1 or 2 turns, and Gutter Snipe's going to be a big help with that.
Great.
Cool. Okay, so speaking of killing your opponents, we need win cons, right? Gutter Snipe is technically one. I would say it's not quite the best one. It'll help you get there for sure, though. But we've got some real big ones. We got some big bad ones here. At first, I think my favorite of them is Metallurgic Summonings.
Ooh, this card is so spicy.
This card is perfect in this deck. This is, when I saw this, and I knew it was so good in Commander, but I didn't really have formed what deck. Like, of course, it's got to be an instant sorcery spell deck, but this is it. This is the one, guys. Metallurgic Summoning.
It feels so good. It must feel what it's like to run like a foster animal shelter. When you find the perfect home for an animal,
Yeah.
it must feel so gratifying. Same way to find you. We knew this card was amazing, but to find the perfect home that's gonna love this card and take great care of it, and
You just know it's just a good fit.
it's such a good fit.
It's just a good fit. So Metallurgic Summonings is an enchantment. So that's right off the bat. You're like, why is that a good fit? Well, you'll see. 3 and 2
You'll
blue.
see.
Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create an XX colorless construct artifact creature token where X is that spell's converted mana cost. So that alone is good enough for this to be an auto include and one of the best cards in the deck for sure.
Yeah, I mean, some of our spells cost 1, sure, but a lot of them cost 5, 6, 7. So we're gonna get a wide range of XX artifact constructs.
And just so we're all clear, with Epic Experiment, you do cast those spells. It's not those spells are not just being put on the stack like a copy or something. They are being cast, and you actually you cast them one at a time. We looked up some rules interactions because we weren't sure with how certain cards would work with it. So we're pretty well versed on the rules of Epic Experiment now. Which is new for this podcast. So anyway, so every spell you hit with Epic Experiment will count, as well as the Epic Experiment itself. And so if you cast an Epic Experiment for 12 and red and a blue, so 14 mana total, you get a 14/14 construct. So awesome, right? So great. Also, though, it has this extra text, 3 and 2 blue, which kind of may as my freaking camera, which kind of may as well be flavor text, because I'll explain this. So it's 3 and 2 blue, exile Metallurgic Summonings, return all instant and sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand, activate this ability only if you control 6 or more artifacts. So the reason this is perfect. We get all of our instants and sorceries back again. We can cast Epic Experiment again. That's amazing. That's great. That's perfect. That's exactly what this deck wants to do, because all of those cards, all those spells cast with Epic Experiment go to our graveyard. They don't get exiled or anything. They go right to the graveyard. But here's why it might as well be flavor text. Metallurgic Summonings, I never want to exile you. I never want to exile you. I want this card out all the time, and I want to just make 1,000, because now all my constructs are what's going to win me the game, right? So it's interesting. But the good thing is like, if someone's going to go to destroy it, if you happen to have 5 mana up, you can I'll exile it and then get all of my instants and sorceries back again. So it's great.
And I know time becomes a factor, right? So after your opponents might not notice what you're doing until your first Epic Experiment hits, but after that they're like, okay. But let's say now you got a bunch of constructs on the ground. Maybe next turn you exile Metallurgist, let's say for whatever reason. I've tried as an experiment. I tried exiling it. And then I spent the next turn. So I was already up to like 12, 15 mana. The next turn I exiled Metallurgic Summonings, got back all of that ramp, and just spent that whole turn doing more ramp. And then the turn after that, my Epic Experiment was epic.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So yeah, man, this is like, I mean, are we jumping the gun here with Stars of the Deck? I don't know. It was too exciting to not talk about at this point.
Too exciting. Well, let's talk about another win condition, right? We are casting multiple spells in one turn. So how about an Ether Flux Reservoir? You know, the thing that will one day blow up and kill us all. 4 generic for an artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. Pay 50 life. Ether Flux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player.
I love target creature on that. That's so funny.
I know, right? It's like,
so funny.
If you just gotta get rid of that Arcanus.
What is the situation where you do it to kill a creature? I just don't know. I just don't know. Anyways,
it's probably one of those things where in development they were like, we should at least give them the option.
Yeah, exactly.
Why take that away?
Yeah.
Great. So this doesn't give you 1 life for each spell, like, since you've cast this, right? If we like it counts every spell you've cast prior in the turn, right? So even if I mean, that's very rare. But like, if you have this out though, like I said, if you're casting about 8 spells off of Epic Experiment is your first spell, and the other 8 add up to 9 total, then you're looking at enough. That's enough to gain 50 life total, and that's a kill right there.
Yeah. Of course, the downside is that you do have to lose that 50 life.
Sure.
So if you're at a low life total, you gain 50. Killing like it's only in that case it's fine if it's 1v1, but if you got another player, you might not want to just lose 50 life like that. But if you're at a good life total, yeah, this can just be a kill. This plus Epic Experiment can just be kill one person.
Like, but if you're able to snag 8 spells plus the Epic Experiment, that's a total of 9. That gives you 55 life for the turn. So if you just consider that just like, if you don't consider that life, you're just like, cool. And then I just kill you and gain 5 life. Like that's easy come, easy go, right?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, very, very good. That also has the added bonus of keeping you alive if people are attacking you and people are trying to take your life total down. Sometimes you just happy to have Aetherflux Reservoir just to gain that life. And we did some testing with this, and I did gain like 40 something life off of not even an Epic Experiment, just playing like small spells like ether, what's it called, Attune with Ether, and like brainstorm, things like that.
Brainstorm,
right?
Sure, right.
Some of those ramp spells. If you take that turn where you're just ramping, Aetherflux Reservoir is amazing for that.
Yeah, right. I want to take a detour here and talk about a win more con. This is not a literal win con, but this comes up a bunch. This can certainly, like, I've certainly run into this during an Epic Experiment. Let's talk about. Do you want to read this one, Annie? I read the Aetherflux Reservoir.
Saheeli's Artistry is 4 and 2 blue for a sorcery that says choose one or both. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact. Create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. This is a good detour because this is a win more con, but it also highlights another category of cards we haven't really touched on yet, which is sorceries and instants that make creatures, right? That's that's a great way to use your Epic Experiment, and Saheeli's Artistry is definitely one of the best ones, and especially when you're making copies of Aetherflux Reservoir.
It's so dirty because right. So to walk you through this, if you have hit a Saheeli's Artistry within your Epic Experiment and you have an Aetherflux Reservoir on the battlefield, unfortunately, by the time that Saheeli's Artistry is resolving to make a second one, all your spells have been cast already. That new Aetherflux Reservoir has missed the opportunity to see all those new casts. So you're not getting double all that life right away. However, you will get a second one when it's done, and each Aetherflux Reservoir looks back in the turn to see how many spells you've cast. So if you hit that Harrow and you grab a couple of blue or a couple of red or a blue and a green, and you have something in your hand that you can cast for one, after all that's said and done, you will get credit for every spell off of both of those Aetherflux Reservoirs. So then you're like, each one sees like, oh, you already cast 11 spells? Cool, we'll each give you 12. And it's like, cool, there's another 24. There's almost another kill right there on someone. It's crazy.
It's a win faster con, which I don't think is bad in Commander, right?
Right.
Win more cards in Limited are whatever, because you just need to beat one person, but in other formats, I suppose, too. But in Commander, there is a real value to those cards because we have to kill 3 players, 4 players, whatever. So so those win more cards are win faster because they kill people quicker, and this is a good example of one that's very good and quite valuable in the deck.
Indeed.
Another win con, I mentioned him in the Bird segment, is Talrand, Sky Summoner, 2 and 2 blue for a legendary Merfolk Wizard. It's a 2/2, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you make a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. It's basically a little Metallurgic Summonings, but you get that evasion. These guys are great blockers even early in the game. Like if you get Talrand down on turn 4 or something, and then people want to come at you, well, you can just cast your instants, cast your ramps, and you're going to get some blockers. And sometimes you get enough blockers to just completely stop attacks at you because you can team block and kill a good flyer that they have or something like that. So These this is another side of these cards being really great. They're not only win cons, they also keep you alive in the early game. That goes for Metallurgic Summonings. It goes for Aetherflux Reservoir. It goes for Talrand as well. So
huge,
very, very
huge.
good. These are like, I mean, maybe we did jump the gun with the 3 stars a bit with this category, but whatever. We got to talk about them.
Well, okay. Well, let's move on to the 3 stars anyway.
Yeah,
There's only going to be one repeat. We have saved a
That's
couple.
true.
So
Yes, we have.
Coming in at star number 3, a card we haven't mentioned yet. Crewfix, God of Horizons. 3 green, blue, legendary enchantment creature god. 4/7, indestructible. It's got that devotion thing. If your devotion to green and blue is less than 7, it's not a creature. I don't predict we will have devotion very often at all. It's very difficult to get that many pips on the board as a permanent, but that doesn't matter. You also have no maximum hand size, which I always forget about.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. I did not know that was on here even.
Right?
That's really funny.
But the key of Crewfix is unused mana that would empty from your mana pool, that mana becomes colorless instead. So we can save up for truly epic experiments.
Yeah.
If we're only at like 6 mana and we get a Crewfix, we're like, that's cool. I'll just put all 6 away next turn, and all 6 away the turn after, and the turn after that will be a gigantic one.
Yeah, this is great. This is a good one. Number 2, we've already talked about it, but Metallurgic Summonings. It's so good. We don't really need to say too much about it, but trust me, this card's amazing. If you're playing against this deck, you gotta kill out Metallurgic Summonings, and if you're playing with this deck, keep your counter spells up to protect it, as well as your Epic Experiment, of course. But this is a good card. And the number 1 star, what do we got? What could beat Metallurgic Summonings? What could beat it?
We got Sphinx Bone Wand.
Yes.
7 generic for an artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put a charge counter on Sphinx Bone Wand. If you do, Sphinx Bone Wand deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player. This adds up the same way Aetherflux Reservoir does, except it doesn't reset every turn. So an Epic Experiment after you've resolved a Sphinx Bone Wand, you're just like, I'm going to do 1 to your face, and then 2 to your face, and then 3 to your face. It's not long. I think the magic number there is, let me figure it out, how many you need to do 40.
It's geometric, so it's 90, I think. Or, sorry, 9, rather. So 9,
well, 9 gets you to
will
55.
Oh, just 55? I thought it was 45. So I guess it would be...
No, 5, right. 10 gets you to 55.
Yeah.
Hang on. What's the easy way to calculate this?
So 9.
How did you know? You just know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
You're a math genius. 9 gets you to 45.
Yeah,
That's
45.
correct.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because it's going up by the number, right? So if 10 is 55, it's 10 less, so 45.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
So anyways, Sphinx Bone Wand is geometrically getting larger and larger, and it's like you said, it's Aetherflux Reservoir, but instead of gaining you life, it's taking away life from other people, and it doesn't reset, like Sean said. So you can cast Epic Experiment, kill someone, and then your next attune with Ether is an 11 damage spell. You know, like if you hit 10 off the Epic Experiment, which will also hit with this card is bonkers in the right deck, and I think because it costs 7, which is a real cost, it is overlooked a lot in decks, and obviously it's obviously put in instant and sorcery decks, but man, this card is a lot of removal, a lot of creature removal if you wanted it to be, and can sometimes win you games. Like I would put this in. I don't know. See, it's hard to say, right? Like the thing about it is it's a permanent, it's an artifact, it costs 7. You don't necessarily want to jam it in a lot of these instant and sorcery decks, but it's so good that, I don't know, maybe it does belong in a lot of them. Who knows? It's great.
Ooh, great. Were there any surprises and discoveries? Any cards that are just like, never thought about this card in this way before? Certainly. This one is, we were just looking at like big spells that do good things that we could include to possibly hit out. This is a card I have totally forgot about. Red players, think about Volcanic Offering. 4 and a red for an instant. Destroy target non-basic land you don't control and target.
Oof, we got to freeze. Oh,
what?
Sorry. It froze. Okay, carry on. We're good.
Volcanic Offering also has the extra paragraph. It deals 7 damage to target creature you don't control and 7 damage to target creature of an opponent's choice you don't control. So it's going to hit 2 non-basics and 2 creatures that you don't control. You get to pick one of each, and an opponent gets to pick one of each. So if it's down to 2 people, your opponent has to pick his own stuff and will only pick the things that you also already targeted. So it won't get extra stuff. But if you pick another player, unless they're a team, they'll be like, yeah, I'll kill a second thing for you. No problem.
Exactly. So hopefully you can, if someone's doing well, you can sort of take that person down a peg or 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
is just something fun to keep in mind in red decks.
Yeah. I mean, and okay, so we have another one too. This one could have been a whole category because we have a couple of these cards, but let's just talk about this one real quick. Oh, we are going to mention another one in a sec. So yeah, let's do this one. Hunting Pack. It's 5 and 2 green for an instant. That's put a 4/4 green beast creature token onto the battlefield. But it has Storm. Storm says when you cast the spell, copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. So obviously, a Hunting Pack at the end of an Epic Experiment will get you a bunch of 4/4 green beasts. This card is like questionable in that it's cost 7 mana, but when you're casting it for free, it's amazing. I did play a game where I did manage to get 26 4/4 green beast creature tokens.
Wow.
Which is great. And the way I did that was like copied an Epic Experiment. So the Epic Experiment won't cast as being cast. So that's the thing. Like if you put in these spell copiers, you got to know that you can't copy a Storm spell because it just places it on the stack. It doesn't cast it, right? So that's important. Sean clued me into that. That's not how I got my 26 Hunting Pack beast. That's what I thought. But what it actually was I copied an Epic Experiment after another Epic Experiment. So that second Epic Experiment did cast all those next spells. That's how that worked for me. So so I did get 26 hunting pack like beasts. It was just amazing, and there's probably pretty few decks you can run this in. I think, right? Not a lot of Storms based decks are going to be running green. First of all, especially in Commander. But I think here. This is the home for this deck. It's kind of another like little puppy that found a home. Hunting Pack.
Yeah.
Who knew, right?
Cool. I want to highlight another Storm card. And I guess, so maybe we should have done a section on Storm. You're right. But so another way Storm's going to benefit us is a card called Mind's Desire, right? We're going to hope we hit this with Epic Experiment. Obviously, that's when Storm cards are the strongest. 4 blue. Shuffle your library, then exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost, and it's got Storm, obviously. So the key thing about this card is it doesn't just shuffle the top of your library a bunch of times and pick the top card a bunch of times and then cast them. It puts them into exile, and then you cast them when you're ready to.
Yeah.
So for free. So you can line up future Storms that way, right? You can get more spells cast if you have your Aetherflux Reservoir. Like if you hit your Saheeli's Artistry and then copy an Aetherflux or a Sphinx Bone Wand in the middle of it, all those spells miss the cast triggers. But all those Mind's Desire ones, they're going to be around to see all those cast triggers. So like we're going to get those extra ones on there. It just has a great way of giving you just a little extra gas on your Epic Experiment. It's great. I love it. It's just like a bonus turbo boost.
And so we were confused. I especially was confused about this when we first started like playing and like testing with this deck a bit. So Storm, because I'm not super familiar with Storm. Storm is like it was before my time, and like I haven't really played any decks with it. So if you're going to cast Epic Experiment, you do cast each spell one at a time, right? So your Storm, at first I was like, oh, you got to put the Storm on first because then, they all resolves and then Storm will resolve and see them. No, that's not how it works. It's about casting. So you cast all the spells from Epic Experiment first, so you take all the other ones, and then your Storm spell should go last because it's about when it's cast. So you cast the 9 other spells and then you cast the 10th one as your Storm. It'll see the 9 before it and hit 9 copies of it, and yeah, then you're laughing.
Cool. And then just one other interaction I want to highlight is we are running Elixir of Immortality, right? It's a 1 mana artifact that for 2 in a tap you can gain 5 life, shuffle it and your graveyard into their owner's library. We're going to be doing multiple epic experiments, so it is reasonable that we're going to basically get a lot of good stuff out of our deck and into our graveyard, and we don't want that. We want to put those things back. Again, as the game has gone on further, we're going to have a lot of our lands out, so this just further intensifies the spell density of our remaining library. But here's the key way to use it that I only figured out late. Maybe it's obvious to all of you, but when you put a bunch of cards, let's say you have an elixir out and you put a ton of cards on the stack with Epic Experiment. You want to put the ones that find lands, or another way to say that, ones that you don't care about later, because you don't want those all the time. There will come a time where those are basically dead for you, except for Storm Count. You can put those on the stack in such a way so all the good spells hit the graveyard first, then you elixir the good spells back in, then you let the ramp spells go to the graveyard for future epic experiments to not be present, if that's how you want to roll with it.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. There's also another card called Perpetual Timepiece that kind of does that for you. It's a 2-mana artifact. You can actually mill with it, which I found very valuable. Milling is actually pretty good, depending on what you have in your hand, obviously. But if you have one of those get stuff back cards, Perpetual Timepiece is great. But then the other ability is you pay 2, you exile it, and you shuffle any number of target cards back into your deck. So you can just choose the ones you want back in. It's great.
Yeah, avoid those lands. Just put, oh man, so good.
Yeah, it's a nice card.
Good. This deck is just fun.
It's very fun. It's a lot of fun. I guess at this point, what are we looking at? We're looking at...
we're going to do another ad from the Wizards Tower, and then we're going to go to a budget report, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just looking at this area. I'm like, what's this?
Yeah, I kind of covered... I made some peculiar notes.
There's some different notes here, but I did want to... Before we get to that...
sure.
I do want to talk about this. I want to talk about the copy spells.
Right.
So we do have Reverberate in this deck, which is 2 red, red, instant, copy target, instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. If you have this in your hand, it does double duty where if you cast Epic Experiment, hold back that 2 red because you're going to copy your Epic Experiment. Also, the other great thing is if someone tries to counter your Epic Experiment, Reverberate can counter a counter spell, which is nice.
Right.
So that's like a little like fun bonus, little cute bonus that it does. But really, you're in there to copy Epic Experiment. But if you do hit Reverberate with your Epic Experiment, you cannot copy Epic Experiment with Reverberate. You can target your Epic Experiment with Reverberate, but Epic Experiment will have resolved and gone to the graveyard before Reverberate gets to resolve, so it won't copy that spell.
Right.
But it's if you stack it correctly, if you cast them in the correct order, you can reverberate other spells inside of the Epic Experiment, right?
Yes.
So there's some value there, right? So still you might hit like a Sahili's Artistry and get to reverberate that, or Rise from the Tides, which is a great card, which puts zombies in for every instant sorcery in your graveyard. Like if you want to reverberate that too. So there's a couple good options in there. As well as just being able to copy the Epic Experiment. But here's where things get really nutty. So we only have the one in this deck, some budget reasons, obviously. But if you were jumping outside of the budget a little bit, if you Epic Experiment and then you copied your Epic Experiment and you hit a copy spell with that one, you could then reverberate your original Epic Experiment and get another copy of Epic Experiment. So like that's when you start to get like, oh, now I can just cast my entire deck. So if that's if that's a route you want to take, you can sort of swap out some of the cards we've included and try and do that, which is nuts. And I did manage to do it in another version of the deck when I was testing it. So it there's some other ways to build this deck. There's an entire creatureless version of this deck that uses Proteus Staff to you have one creature in your deck and you put it to the bottom, and then you can like you get to reorder the cards that you moved with it in any order. So basically what you get to do is just completely organize your deck in any order you want, and then just cast your epic experiment and hit every single thing you want, like you always know. Anyways, that's
so dirty.
That seems a bit less fun, just because it's like, we'll do this order every time then, right? Like it's
right.
It's not quite as fun. You want that variable, you want those variables in there. You want that randomness. It's fun.
Right? And like, yeah, it's that oh boy. Yeah. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. This is an example of why, a concrete example of why I am an advocate for hitting Harrow and getting 2 untapped lands. Because let's say you've copied an epic experiment, right? So you've got 2 of them on the stack, right? And that first one hits a reverberate, cool, you're going to throw it on the next one. But we're also going to hit basic draw spells. Like, we haven't talked about those, but there's just draw spells in here. So what if we draw in the resolution? What if we draw a 2-mana copy spell? We're going to want to be able to cast it. So there's a reason we got that 2 mana up now that we didn't take away from our epic experiment. We're just going to get that back as Harrow goes on. You know what? It only occurs to me, we probably should run something like what's called Rude Awakening, which is the sorcery that untaps all lands you control, just to maybe, I don't know, to just keep it rolling within the same turn.
I was about to say there's also a lot of versions of this deck which run a lot of the untapped land stuff, and you just get to keep like storming off, because there's a lot of times when I would cast my epic experiment, have everything, and then go like, wow, I could just do it again if I had my lands untapped. I could just do it again. And the other thing also that we haven't included, but I felt like I kind of did want, is somehow a haste enabler. Because a lot of times you'd epic experiment with your metallurgic summonings and then be like, well, now I'm just sitting here waiting to get board wiped, right? And you don't want that.
So do you think it would be worth then running 1 or 2 sorceries or instants that give your team haste? Because I would be hesitant to put it on a permanent.
It's tough. It's tough.
Every permanent you add takes away the effectiveness of it.
Yeah.
And like 1 here or there is fine. Like, we're running Gutter Snipe. Is that maybe that one's worth cutting? Maybe it draws too much hate. Maybe it doesn't do enough on your for what you're looking for. Maybe it's too redundant with Sphinx Bone 1. I don't know. But you can't just add permanents all day long.
No, you can't.
Like, eventually, so like, is a haste enable worth it? I don't know.
It's tough to say. Yeah, it's tough to say. You have to figure that one out. I think, much like the card says, this is an experiment. So you do need to test this a lot and find out which, like in my testing, I found I was like, I think a haste enabler would be really good. I think it would be awesome. And I think it would, if you can, they must have ones where all your creatures get haste as an instant or sorcery, right? Maybe not, because that's a weird card.
I don't think, well, I don't know.
I also don't know.
So
but
there's Surge of Zeal, which is, oh no, but that won't work. It's 1 red, Radiance. Target creature and each other creature that shares a color with it gain haste until end of turn. That's good for Talrand's 2/2 blue drakes, but that's no good for your colorless constructs.
Correct, yeah.
What else? That's an instant, but it could be a sorcery, because we are going to cast them at instant speed.
True.
Epic Experiment does let us cheat on timing. So, yeah, you know what? There's lots of simple spells that, well, I mean, there's like Burst of Speed. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. 1 mana, 1 red mana sorcery.
There it is.
And then if you have it in your hand, you can just cast that pretty cheaply. I know, that would be something to consider. I don't know.
I think I might want to run a card like that. It doesn't. It seems like maybe it doesn't do enough, but there's turns where you can just win if you have it.
Yeah. And then there's something like, do you run Insurrection, right? Because Insurrection gives you control of all creatures, including your own, and it gives everything haste, including your own. So like, if you hit an Insurrection, you'd have to stack it so that Insurrection resolves last, so that you have the most amount of constructs and or drakes on the board.
Pricey card. We didn't include it in here for probably price reasons. Coming up around $5-6 US these days. So, yep, but it is good. I did include it in my own personal brew.
Ooh. Getting the tips. So if you're going to be at GP Vegas, so you know who's also going to be in GP Vegas? The Wizards Tower.
That's
The Wizard
right.
Tower. WizardsTower.com. WizardTower.com. The Wizards Tower. Right. That's where the apostrophe is.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to be there. Our sponsor's going to be there. Our T-shirts are going to be there. Our decks are going to be there. Some stickers are going to be there. Yeah. If you are around, you know, we're getting familiar with a number of you by Twitter handle or by like Twitch handle, but you know, we've seen very few faces. So please, if you see us, we're nice people. Like, please come say hello. We would love to meet you. If you're going to be at GP Vegas, we will be putting up tweets that are like, here's where we're going to be for the next while, or here's where we're going to be tonight, or here's where we're having lunch, you know, come join us or something like that.
Come hang out.
By all means.
That's the point of the whole thing, basically, is to
please
play as much Commander as we can, hang out with people, hang out with listeners, whatever, meet new people. It's going to be a great time. So if you see us, say hi.
Great. The Wizard Tower is going to be there too. And like, this is one of the best times. You all know that they do a wicked deal on shipping. If you make orders 15 or more in Canada, 10 in the US. But what a great time to avoid shipping in general. Like if you just roll in with some traders, you can trade them in, get that store credit, and then just flip it right away and just trade them in for stuff. You can trading in person, like straight up trades, always gives you more value than if you use the mail.
Yeah, and I will say this, Wizards Tower, I've noticed, just because, like I said yesterday, I actually had to go to an LGS here. Of course, Wizards Tower is in Ottawa, so if I could have just jumped over there, I for sure would have. But so I had to go to an LGS here and pick up a few cards, and I did notice that Wizards Tower has very like competitive prices as far as their Canadian prices go. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that transfer over to the American prices, especially at GP Vegas, where it's going to be, there's a lot of competition there. So if you're there, check out their booth, because I'm positive you'll get some great deals there. Sounds good. Now it's time for the budget report.
This is where we take all of the cards and we conduct an experiment. We tell some of them that they were twins growing up, but they really weren't. And then we reveal it later and try to assess the psychological damage we've caused.
I was thinking we could experiment. Where we could take all the good genes and put it into one of the twins, and we take all the bad genes and we put it into the other twin, and then we let them grow
Danny
up.
DeVito.
One of them grows up on a beautiful tropical island with a bunch of babes all the time, and the other one is a low-life cheating loser. And then we get them together later in life and we see if it works out.
And the entire movie Twins, which you are referencing, is entirely based on the assumption that it is all nature and zero nurture.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Did they ever make the sequel, or did we just hear about it?
I don't know. If there was a sequel, Arnold Schwarzenegger certainly did not do it.
Well, okay, then it hasn't been yet. But I heard rumors of a sequel being tossed around where they found a triplet who was heretofore undiscovered, who was rumored to be played by Eddie Murphy.
Yes, I heard that too. Eddie Murphy was the third twin. I think that would be a risky move, to be honest with you. I don't know what that would entail. Anyways, yeah. Listen, here's the thing. I love Twins as a movie when I was a kid. Loved it. One of my favorite movies when I was little. But I watched it since. That's not a movie that holds up very well. Still fond memories, though, and I still love singing "Tonight Is Your Night, Bro." I still like singing that. That's fun.
I don't know that one.
That's when he's getting ready to go on the date with his girl, and Danny DeVito's doing push-ups.
Nice.
Anyways, Danny DeVito, they're both very good in that movie. It just drags a bit. Anyways, budget report. We came in just under 50 this time, 49.64. We wanted to really push this deck to the limits because we really wanted it to like definitely work out, right? We wanted to get the best experiment we could, and I think we did pretty good. Number one most expensive card in the deck is Karufix, God of Horizons. We mentioned him earlier. He's the 4/7 god with indestructible and all that. I think one of the best cards in the deck, so I think we definitely got to keep it.
Well, okay, I was gonna think about that, right? So certainly the ability to just keep ramping and just keep collecting mana so that you can eventually cast the biggest epic experiment is for sure a thing. But I'm not sure if the amount it is worth it though, for the amount of budget. If you're thinking on budgets, to like free up that $6 allows us to add a lot more interesting spells we might rather have. I'm not sure.
True. That's true. I wouldn't mind running another copy spell in this place. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I will say also in all my testing, I played a bunch of games with this to see how crazy things could get with this deck. And it was basically gold fishing. I was playing against the computer on Forge. Although they did attack the crap out of me, and it was like, okay, well, I'm at 2 life. Can I win at 2 life against one person? And the answer is yes. But I never, ever got crew fix in any of those games, so I actually don't fully know how valuable he is. I would think he would be very good, but... Yeah.
I feel like you would be more often than not taking turns off to like bank mana. I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't think so. I think I don't think you want to do that. I think you would cast all the spells you normally would in a turn, and then like you bank the 1 or 2 extra that you have laying over, right? Like,
okay.
I think that's what you would want to do, because then that does add up after a couple turns, right? You might end up with 6 or 7 mana, and then the turn you want to epic experiment, that's 4 or 5 or 6 lands you don't have to tap so you can keep up a copier, a counter spell, like, you know what I mean? So I think that is where the value comes there.
Sure.
Yeah. Next.
Next most expensive spell is Mystical Tutor. This is the 1 blue mana instant that tutors up an instant or sorcery, plops it on the top of your deck. That's a $5 card. But the synergy is so good with Epic Experiment specifically, and it is a tutor for the key namesake of this deck to begin with. So I think that's a reason to keep it in.
It's a must-have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, we have Kydel, chosen a crew fix, which is 2 green and a blue, and it's a legendary creature, human wizard with for 2. It's a 2/3, and it says tap, add colorless mana to your mana pool for each card you've drawn this turn. Like we said, Riku is the better commander for this deck, probably, though he's $10. So
yeah, if you were going out of budget, you'd splurge on a Riku.
Yeah, but we're not. So guess what? Kydel and Ludovic are still solid commanders for this deck. Ludovic's going to keep some aggression away from you a little bit. He's also going to draw you some cards. And Kydel is going to ramp you a little bit. And if you end up drawing cards with Ludovic, she's going to ramp you a little bit more. So it's a nice little combo.
At the very least, Kydel is a free mana rock permanent that does not reduce the density of your deck.
Yeah.
You will, except under extreme circumstances, you'll always get that 1 card from your initial draw. So Kydel always will tap for 1, pretty much, which is a little bit bigger Epic Experiment, which we like to do, and Kydel does not live in the deck, so this is not a permanent that then makes the deck. And you know what? If we're going to make that argument, having 2 partner commanders is 2 less cards in the deck, which means better chance to hit Epic Experiment, better density for the spells.
Ever so slightly, yes. But yes, it is.
Hey, man, I'll take those edges.
We got to take those edges where you can find them. So that's it, though. That is the deck, the Epic Experiment, the great one, number 99. Next week it's 100. After GP Vegas. This is a big week for this podcast, isn't it?
Very big week for the podcast. You may have noticed.
I believe that GP Vegas and episode 100 basically happen at the same time. That's nuts.
Yeah.
How did we figure, like, that was not planned.
Not planned. Like, how could it have been planned, right? We would have to have done the math.
Yeah.
At the beginning.
That's
so far in advance.
Knowing which one or 2 weeks here and there we would skip anything. Anyways, yeah.
Oh boy. But you may have noticed we didn't give you who the next subject of the Commander's Burn is yet. For all those who want to play along, we love seeing everyone play along, but we don't know if we're gonna do a burn next week. Probably not. The next week's episode is gonna be a little out of formula. We are going to be in GP Vegas for almost the entirety of our production schedule, the way we've been running things. Normally we'd be home by the time to produce an episode, but we'll be on a plane, in a hotel, in a casino, in a hot tub, in in a pair of sunglasses.
Sean just rubbing it in for anyone who can't make it to GP Vegas. It's going to be the best. Everyone's going to be there.
I don't mean it that way.
We're going to meet hot tub. We're going to meet celebrities.
We're gonna
be on Jeopardy.
We're gonna rappel down that weird pyramid.
Yeah.
It's too bad that
we're gonna hang out with Wayne Newton. It's gonna be wicked.
Yeah, Penn and Teller's gonna cut me in half.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's gonna be a different episode because we will not be in our normal studios to produce it. So not to mention we have a few surprises we would like to do. And yeah, so we don't know exactly what it's gonna look like, but it's gonna be wild and crazy.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. So stay tuned, and we'll see everybody either at the big GP, or if you're not able to make it, we'll see you here next week. Don't forget about that Brew and Brawl at the end of the month, last Sunday of every month as well.
We won't forget this time.
Come on over to twitch.tv/CommandersBrew. All right. That's it. We'll see you guys next week for episode 100.
Bye.
Bye.
And welcome back for the Commander interview, where we interview someone from the decks. Now this week, we have a very special interview. I am really sorry that Andy couldn't be here for this. I know he really would have wanted to, but he's too busy watering the grass. Ladies and gentlemen, the great one, number 99, Wayne Douglas Gretzky.
Oh, thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's Mr. Gretzky. May I call you Wayne?
Oh, please call me Wayne. Absolutely.
Wayne, as a Canadian, it is an honor to interview you, to have some of your valuable time. You just really quickly, I won't go into all of your immeasurable records and things, but just so many records, so many Stanley Cups, and just an inspiration to so many young hockey players, Canadian and otherwise. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Oh, well, it's it is a pleasure to be here, and I've had some great times in my career, and I'm just very proud of that. Very, very happy to have been able to play.
Great. I wonder if we could spend a second just think back, maybe tell us when you were young and just coming up through the league, what was it like to hoist your first Stanley Cup in the air? That must have been a momentous occasion for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a dream come true when that happens for any young hockey player, any young person growing up in North America, certainly wanting to play in the league and reach that ultimate prize. It's 82 games plus another however many in the playoffs, and it's a tough grind, and it's certainly a life goal to get there. So, and it was for me. So.
Oh yes, and I know as well that not only your sports accomplishments, you had a cereal for a little while, the Pro Stars.
Yeah.
What a delicious.
My good friends Bo Jackson and Michael Jordan, of course.
Yeah, two greats of their respective sports.
Absolutely.
So. What's it like now that you're retired from playing? How is hockey still influencing your life as you move forward?
Well, I owe everything in my life to the game of hockey, and I've said it before, and it continues to give to me, whether it's through the Canadian international program or whether it's being involved with the Phoenix Coyotes or a coaching career, whatever it is. I will say this though, this is a Magic podcast, is it not? Magic the Gathering?
Yes.
Right.
The Commander's Brew. Yes.
I was just was wondering if you were interested in asking me anything about Magic, or it's fine. I'm happy to answer whatever you have. But
I had no idea you were aware of what Magic the Gathering was. We just got you on because this is our 99th episode, and you're number 99, very famously so. So I thought surely that you have no idea what Magic cards are. You play?
Oh, I mean, do I play? Yeah, of course I do. They don't call it in the 99 for nothing. Commander is my preferred game. I call it captain. My commander is my captain of my team, as I was for many years with the Edmonton Oilers and Los Angeles Kings, as well as the St. Louis Blues for one season. But that's that's
Rangers. You played for the Rangers.
I did play for the Rangers as well, but I wasn't the captain there. To be noted. We, of course, had the great Marc Messier as well as Brian Leach during those years. And I was happy to be an alternate on that team. And we had a good playoff run in 1995. And it... Anyways, I don't want to get too into the hockey yet, actually. I did want to come here and let's talk some Magic. Let's talk some Commander.
Oh, wow. Wayne Gretzky, Magic. Okay. So who's your favorite commander or your captain? Who's your favorite captain in your favorite captain deck?
In my captain deck? I do like a lot of them. I think a lot of them are great. I do have to say that I think Riku of the Two Reflections or whatever, he's probably my favorite.
Riku.
As you know,
you're a teamer man.
I'm a teamer man. Red and blue and green. Those are some of my favorite colors. Of course, red and blue with the Rangers. Red is the closest thing to orange in Magic, so red, blue, and orange.
There's no orange.
Yeah, although I'm a big Izzet guy, but I say this, 9 and 9. 99 is 9 doubled. I always appreciated that. I always liked the being my favorite player, of course, growing up was Gordie Howe, and I took his number 9 and just doubled it. So I kind of Riku'd his number. So I felt like that was something.
You Riku'd Gordie Howe.
Absolutely, yeah. I like to score a lot of goals. I do.
That's amazing. Oh man, who do you usually play with? Do you usually play online, or do you have a group you meet with? Who do you play with?
Oh, I play with the Pro Stars mostly. Bo, Michael. We get other greats in on it from time to time. It is the greatest play group. That's kind of you have to be the greatest to play with us, basically. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we got Jack Nicklaus in there. We've got
you have Jack Nicholson, the play group?
Not Nicholson, Nicholas. Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear. Wait, is he dead?
Right, but
no, he's not.
I'm
he's
not
alive.
Sure if he's still with
Arnold
us.
Palmer's dead. Arnold Palmer played with us for a bit, but now it's Jack. We also have Pete Sampras is in there.
Great.
Martina Navratilova, she'll come over from time to time.
Oh yeah.
So,
how does your play group feel these days about Tiger Woods? Is he allowed around?
Tiger, we were considering sending an invite to Tiger. Jack's been getting tired. And you know what? Here's the thing about Tiger. If you want to get real about Tiger for a second.
Yeah, let's get real about Tiger on this Magic podcast for a second.
The thing about Tiger is that, he was given medications for a back surgery, and he was not warned adequately about them. He tried to drive home. He felt like he was getting an adverse effect, so he pulled over and he stopped. He did the right thing. And now everyone is busting his balls about it. But really, Tiger, he's had back surgery. He did the right thing there. Anyways. I'll defend Tiger all day long against that allegation. But there are some other allegations in his life that we won't get into. That's personal stuff. But, he's welcome to play with us. He's one of the greats.
Now, would you be are you going to be at GP Vegas at all coming up? Can we look forward to meeting you, maybe doing some spell slinging with the great one himself?
I will be there, absolutely. I will be there, but I will be there in a hockey capacity because the Las Vegas Golden Knights, of course, the newest expansion team to the NHL, will be playing next season. So I'll be there scouting venues for me to open up my latest Wayne Gretzky's restaurant.
Oh, wow.
Which is also a Magic-themed restaurant now.
It's also Commander specifically.
Commander Chili's. We got Mizix's Meatloaf. We got a lot of great things that are going to be happening there. What a strange mix of things you might be thinking. Wayne Gretzky, hockey, restaurant, and Magic the Gathering. But guess what? That's my life.
Well, I mean, you have a line of clothes and you have a line of wine. I don't see why you can't get into the Magic game.
Well, I'm working on a lot of things, really. I'm working on a line of socks. I'm working on some seasonings. I got a line of seasonings like Mrs. Dash, except it's Mr. Gretzky's.
Oh, kind of like getting on the Paul Newman thing?
A little bit, yeah. We got some salad dressings coming out in early 2019.
Oh, great.
We have a line of cat toys.
Wow.
Those are called those are just called great ones. Anyways, we also have a line of wipes, wet wipes for the bathroom.
Or for chicken wings?
Sure, if you want to use them for that, absolutely you can. I mean, they're meant to wipe your bum, but that's fine. If you want to carry a box of bum wipes to your favorite wing place, that's on you. You can do that. Basically, what I'm saying is I got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies here, Sean, and I'm really working towards making them all great.
Oh, Mr. Gretzky, I am on board. I want to help any way we can. Now, I have to ask, because of you and your great meta, all your superstars, do you have any inside info about what's coming up in the new Commander pre-con or upcoming sets? Can you give us a little spoiler info?
I can, actually, because as you may or may not know, I do also freelance design for Wizards of the Coast as the Great One. They sometimes need a great card. And I can tell you right now that I do have a great card here with me that that I can spoil for you on this podcast. This is the first ever on this podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, let's hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, I had no idea. We would have put this in the show notes, but we have no idea this was coming. A spontaneous spoiler. Our first one here at Commander's Brew. This is a momentous occasion. Mr. Gretzky, let her rip.
Okay, so it's 9 colorless mana.
Yeah?
For a 9/9 artifact creature, Great Construct.
Yep.
And it says, put a puck counter on... Oh, the name of it is the Great One. The Great One? The Great One. And it's put a puck counter on the Great One. And for every counter on the Great One, score a goal. You miss 100% of the puck counters you don't remove.
Now, Mr. Gretzky, that card sounds okay, but before I get into it, are you okay? It sounded like you're having a really hard time reading that card, which is probably right in front of you. Yeah, you were stumbling a lot while you were reading it.
A pair of glasses. I'm wearing my glasses, and they had some sauce on them.
Sauce. Okay.
Some plum sauce.
Mr. Gretzky, what a great interview.
Plum sauce. Gretzky's plum sauce on them.
Mr. Gretzky, it's an honor having you. Thank you for the spoiler. We'll see you in GP Vegas, and good luck with the Las Vegas hockey team.
I've got nothing to do with that team.
No,
I'm just there opening my restaurant, but I appreciate it, Sean. Thanks for having me here. This podcast is truly the Great One.
Thank you, Wayne.
I do say that on every podcast, though. I'm sorry. Okay, bye.
If you want to contact us, I'm at Sean Tabaris.
And I'm at Andy Holbone.
Send us an email at commandersbrew@gmail.com.
You can find out when we go live on Twitch if you follow us at twitch.tv.
And if you care to support us on Patreon, check us out at patreon.com.
And you can find our deck list on tappedout.net.
And if we forgot anything, commandersbrew.com.